Awesome, man. Listen, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It is such a pleasure to get to speak to you again. How are you doing today?
Oh no. Oh yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for making the effort and wanting to talk to me, I guess.
When that offer came in for interview times, the slots and everything like that, straight away it was like, oh my god, contract. Absolutely.
Oh
It already feels like Bloodstock last year was what 10 months ago, but it literally feels like yesterday already.
yeah, it's weird, right? It's weird how things are passing by. Like it feels like yesterday and also like it was 10 years ago at the same time. It's weird.
Do you find that it does, even as you're building towards like an album release, that it does fly by, or does it kind of start to drag as you get closer to that date?
It's been kind of both. It was like everything seemed to come together very quick. Then it were and then like once we kind of like had our release date and we knew it was finally going to be July 1st, it seemed to like take forever. Then all of a sudden, these last couple of months seem to have flown by, but now we're back to like, oh, it's coming out any day now, or like any week now. It seems to have slowed right down again. So it's just a mess. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. I'm going to wake up one day and my album will be out and we'll go from there.
Do you enjoy this sort of slow process that does come with the release of an album? So as much as part the press aspect, the releasing of content, the slow drip feed of singles and so on.
Yes and no. Like on one hand, like it does start to wear in the way that like especially the closer and closer we get, I just wish it was out. Like it's like especially because we've had it done, like I've been able to listen to it for over a year now, so that we are kind of at the point where I'm like, I'm sick of it now. I just want people to be able to hear it. But it is nice, like when you get the reaction, like when you do start to tease stuff and like you throw a single out and like people are excited, like that is nice. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that sense, where it would be like in an ideal world we could just give people the album straight away, but that's obviously not how it works. And so you kind of make the best and have the most fun you can with the teasers and the content and the marketing here and there and all that sort of stuff.
It's a game. It's a game. You've got to play the game.
A little bit, yeah. There's a little bit of that to it.
There is, yeah. But as we draw ever closer to the release of Pathos, it's July 1st, 2022. How's the feeling in the Conjurer camp overall? Are you feeling quite relaxed and excited, especially as obviously you've recently run into the issues with the vinyls?
Yeah, up until that point, it was all great. It was another one of those things where it's like, cool, everything's going well, singles are out, everybody's really enjoying it, great. We've been playing some gigs, we've been doing some touring. Like, yeah, it was a really nice time to be in Conjurer and all that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, we started getting the communication that there might be a vinyl issue and all of that, blah, blah, blah. So that's not been the nicest last week or so. And it's still ongoing. Like Nuclear Blast are being really good at like chasing it up and keeping us updated and all that sort of stuff. So it's put a little bit of a dampener on things just because we delayed the album in the first place, like to make sure or to try and make sure that everybody got it in whatever format they wanted, like on release day or as close to as possible. Like we could have released the album months ago, but it would have been one of those where it's like the album's out, but if you pre-ordered a vinyl, you'll get that in like 5 months or something like that. And we didn't want it to be that way, as people have already waited like 4 years for it. We wanted it to be, it's out, here it is, you can have it however you want it, and like just let people enjoy it. So now that that's been compromised a little bit, it stings a little bit, but it shouldn't be too bad. It should still be, we should still hopefully, from what I've been told anyway, get hold of our copies that we're then shipping out to people by the time it's out. So then it should only be another couple of weeks or like maybe a month tops before people get it. It shouldn't be something where like, oh yeah, well I was meant to get it in July and now here I am in September and I still haven't been told it's shipped or anything like that. It shouldn't be that bad.
It'll be worth it in the end. And it's one of those things I think that everybody is quite understanding about, because it's not a unique situation to you guys alone.
Right.
It sucks, but it is kind of what it is.
Yeah, and that was kind of reassuring because, yeah, I put a post up on all the socials basically to explain, like, this is the case, really sorry, and all of that. But yeah, all of the comments were like completely supportive and positive, and it was really nice to be like, kind of just helps you breathe a sigh of relief and go, okay, it's going to be all right. Like, I'm not going to have a load of refund requests through Bandcamp or anything like that. Like, things are going to be okay. People are human beings and are understanding, and it's not as bad as it could have been.
I think people are just excited to hear it. You know, the format will come, but as long as it's available on, just say, July the 1st digitally, which it's going to be, that will be more than enough to keep people quiet for now.
Right, and that's the other thing. I guess even if someone's preferred format isn't streaming or YouTube or Bandcamp or whatever, like and they may choose to wait until they get the vinyl or something anyway, and that's totally fine. But I guess at least you've got that option. Whereas before streaming and the internet and all of that, it was very much if you didn't have your CD or your vinyl or whatever, you didn't have it at all, right? So I guess it's good that there are options, even if it might not be people's first choice.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's part and parcel of the story as of right now. It's been an incredible 4 or so years for Conjurer in general, though. I mean, we're going back to Maya 2018 and obviously the subsequent rise of Conjurer that followed that. So much touring and playing live, and then bang, along comes COVID and everything grinds to a halt. How much of an effect has the past couple of years had, and the pandemic had, on not just the creation of Pathos, but Conjurer in general?
Again, it's kind of similar to a few other things. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like there's a couple of different sides to it. Part of the reason, like it was never planned to be so long between albums. Obviously, a 2-year pandemic doesn't help, but we had never planned to take as long between Maya and Pathos as what's ended up happening. And part of the reason that it has happened that way is because we could never have seen like Maya blowing up as much as it did, and like people being so receptive to it and being so kind. But then what that meant is we were getting all these amazing tour offers and festivals and like opportunities and stuff off the back of it. That we were basically, like you say, we were just touring and shows and this and that. And we're not a band who writes on the road or like gets in a practice room and jams or anything like that. We all write at home, kind of like on our computers, and send it over to each other and build things up that way. And so obviously not being able to do that because we were out on the road, that was pushing things back and back. And whenever we would have like a month or two off and we go, okay, let's try and do some writing, like we just wouldn't get anything productive out of it or anything like that. So not that the pandemic was a good thing at all, but like having that time where all we could do was be at home and like legally we were told to stay in our houses, it meant we could only focus on the album. So in terms of like the effect it had on the creation of the album, like it expedited the process like exponentially, essentially, because it meant we could focus and really hunker down and not have anything else to do. But then, like say, in terms of like what did it do for the feeling of Conjurer and all that sort of stuff, yeah, we were on tour when it happened. Like we were about to start our first full like European tour, going to loads of countries we'd never been to before, supporting Car Bomb. And then, yeah, we did 4 or 5 German shows. And then we wake up or get a phone call the morning that we're meant to be traveling. I want to say we're going to Prague or somewhere like that. And yeah, we just get a call saying America is shutting their borders, Car Bomb need to go. Like the tour's off essentially. And yeah, we had to do a long drive home to then sit at home for 2 years. So yeah, from a more like personal perspective and as a band that's trying to build something, it the same as with every band, like that's not just something that happened to Conjurer, but yeah, it did definitely halt that side of things. But the plan was kind of to be more quiet in 2020 anyway, in terms of touring after that European tour, to try and focus on the album. So it's like I say, double-edged sword thing, like 2 sides to every coin, right? It definitely wasn't a good thing, but the album definitely wouldn't have happened in the way that it has had we not had that time.
Yeah, it's taking small positives out of an incredibly negative situation.
Right.
There's this guilt process, I think, that comes when you kind of want to sort of mention and talk about, well, look, this worked out okay because of the pandemic, but because it's been such a terrible time, you almost don't want to say it. But I feel like we have to put these little positives out.
This is the thing, is like we can't deny it in that sense. Like if we hadn't have had that time, the album would have definitely still got done, but how long it would have taken, like when we would have been able to do it, what the songs would have turned out like, it's obviously impossible to say. So yeah, like you just said, although there were few positives to take from the pandemic, one of them was that, say, we were given the time to focus and really knuckle down and say, get it done and come out with an album that we're proud of.
Yeah, I think as well, it's kind of tiresome, the same old, when was Conjurer going to do the next album kind of conversation that was constantly happening. Did the forced downtime then kind of take some of that pressure off when it came to working on Pathos? Because I don't think it's hyperbole to suggest this is one of the most anticipated records seen in some time.
Well, that's very kind. Yes and no, because we never really felt a huge amount of pressure anyway. We like Brady, whenever he kind of gets asked this question or anything like that, sums it up really well, where he basically says we have an obligation to people who have like helped us and kind of worked with us. So people like Nuclear Blast and Hold Tight PR and Atonal Booking and all of that. And basically our team, so to speak, like we feel an obligation to do well for them. And obviously we want to kind of make good on the opportunities they've afforded us and all that sort of stuff. But we never had any pressure from like Nuclear Blast in terms of where's the album, like we need it submitted by this date or anything like that. They've been amazing. They were just very much take your time, write the album, give it to us when it's done, and we'll put it out. And then we don't put any pressure on ourselves in that way either. Like the only things we ever said about the album were that we didn't want to do Maya Part 2, essentially. Because I feel like we could have, Maya has still got enough to it and like it's diverse enough where we could have probably gotten away with that. We're doing another album like that and people might not have clocked it. Oh, it's just the same thing. But no, we said that like that was the main thing. We didn't want to do that. But then also we wanted to make basically just a concerted effort to take that next step, just in terms of like the songwriting and stuff. We wanted to take everything that we kind of loved about Maya and all those elements, as well as then incorporating in like the new elements and influences we'd built up over the 4 years, and like really take it to that next level and say take that next step. And that was on everything from like the songs to the artwork to the music videos and everything. So that was the only quote unquote pressure we had, but we put it on ourselves, and I wouldn't even describe it as pressure. It was just those were kind of like our goals and what we wanted to do with the album. So no, the time and how long it had been or anything like that wasn't really a factor, because it's just it comes down to like we're the 4 members of the band. We're going to write the music that we want to write, and it comes out when it comes out. And if people like it, great. If not, fine. But yeah, we don't feel too much pressure otherwise. Obviously, we want people to like it. We're not looking to be arseholes about it. But yeah, it's hard to say we felt too much pressure in that sense.
It's interesting to say as well, particularly from an indie side of things, because I also think then from the fan side of things, as much as anything else, that anticipation, it starts to kind of feel a bit startling when it's, particularly from an outside perspective, when you just kind of enjoy the music and enjoy what you do. But when you've got that constant chatter about who Conjurer are based off Maya and what they may become or what they will become with the next album, how do you guys keep yourselves sane when that chatter, at least pre-pandemic, was very, very consistent?
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's one of those things where I don't know. It is very much just a one step at a time type thing, because we've never, like, with how Maya went and how successful it was, like we were able to do things like when I was talking about the opportunities we got beforehand in terms of tours and all that sort of stuff. We were able to do more off Maya than we kind of thought we'd ever be able to do as a band in general. And so a lot of it has just been figuring out as we go. And so it's kind of been the same thing with like dealing with people's like praise and expectations and stuff. It's just any time anyone says something, we just kind of have to take it, internalize it, and like obviously depending on what it is, like there's a few different interviews and stuff have thrown quite a bit. I don't know who it is, whether it's Nuclear Blast or Hold Tight putting it out, but it's something about like the future of British metal or something like that. And it's things like that where it's like that's very kind first and foremost, but it's also a little bit weird to be like, well, really, us, like we're just 4 idiots. Like that's kind of our thing, is say we're just four idiots in a band writing songs we want to hear. So it's one of those things where we just kind of take it as it comes and then go from there. Like we don't put too much weight into anything, because the other weird bit, we were talking about this the other day, I can't remember why, but it's the sort of thing, like especially with social media and things like that now, you end up in kind of an echo chamber.
Yes.
So like we only ever see like the praise and the people talking about us in that sort of way, because if someone's like talking shit about us, they're not going to tag us in that, so we're very unlikely to see it unless it's like a YouTube comment and stuff like that, at which point there's always negative YouTube comments. And then if someone's indifferent, like they're not going to say anything at all. So it is weird to like only see like positive things about your band. But I think the fact that we're just 4 idiots, we kind of keep each other level-headed just by the fact that we don't know what we're doing. We're just kind of getting along. Everything's an experience for the first time, and then we do our best with it, essentially.
It's really nice to hear that. It, keeps you down to earth, particularly in a world that can be very, very cynical, particularly when, as you said yourself, you do hear statements like the future or hailed as the next big thing in metal, which I think can kind of work one of two ways. It could potentially be a motivating factor for yourselves in the sense that you're going to live up to that and prove that's the case, or that they potentially could be unhelpful because it puts, as you say, unnecessary amounts of pressure from people who don't necessarily know your music. Which way do you see that?
Kind of neither, to be honest. It's one of those things where it's like, again, it's very nice that people say that, but like we don't put too much weight into it or too much stock into it, in the sense like we don't then see comments like that and then go, oh god, okay, yeah, this really needs to be good, and like then start changing what we were going to do to fit that sort of thing. Like, oh god, we're meant to be the next big thing, we need to write songs that sound like this, we need to be playing venues this size, or all of that. Is just, like I say, it's just we kind of take it, internalize it, and do what we would have done anyway. Like, we're very much just gonna do things our own way, or at least I hope going forward we'll still be able to say do things our own way. And it's just a case of so far so good. Like, everything happens to have gone well so far, so we don't really see any need to change one way or another. And like I say, in terms of whether we do become the future of British metal and like one of the biggest bands in the world or anything like that, if that happens, magic, great, wicked. We never thought that would happen, and we're not holding out for it. Like, that's not why we do it, so to speak. But if it does, perfect. And if it doesn't, well, it won't be through anything we've done. Hopefully it'll just be a case that it didn't work out.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Keep it straightforward like that. Part of what's going to help though is, of course, Pathos, your new album, undoubtedly Conjurer, but with some of your most creative work to date across this entire album. What was most important thing for you to showcase here? And how did you balance the core heavy sound of the band, of course, that core edge you have, with what is an incredible amount of colorful creativity?
Yeah, that was kind of like I was saying before, that was kind of the only goal we had for this. Like, we didn't sit down. There was one point where every now and again Dan will have these big, like, romanticized artistic ideas about what he wants to do with the band and his career and all that sort of stuff. And so there was one point where, before we'd really got a lot of the songs even started, he was saying he wanted the whole album to be like essentially how the song Rot turned out. He wanted the whole thing to be like that, like just disgustingly heavy, discordant, like oppressive from minute one till the end, and just basically have the whole thing like that. And I remember at the time thinking, well, we'll see. And then, yeah, luckily it didn't turn out that way. And he's now also of the opinion that thank God you talked me down and that sort of thing. But yeah, we never, other than say that one thing that Dan mentioned, that we didn't then set out to go, oh yeah, this has to be heavy or this has to be this or that. It was very much just a case of, okay, like, we've got all the things we enjoy, we've got our influences and stuff we've picked up over the last 4 years that maybe we weren't listening to when we wrote Maya and that sort of thing. And it was all just kind of about bringing that together. And then, like I was saying before, with doing that, we wanted to then, make sure we were pushing the boat out and not playing it safe and experimenting with stuff and trying. And so that's how we've ended up with things like, I don't know, on All You Will Remember, we've got like the spoken word section and all of that sort of things. It's like just wanting to try those sorts of things and bring new elements into the music while still having it sound like Conjurer. Yeah. And kind of like the bit that we go back and forth on is like, we'll argue over the smallest little details, but that's to make sure that it's like everything has its place, because we know that we do a lot and we know that we've got, like you say, a super heavy section, but then there might be a quiet bit, or there might be a guitar melody under the vocals and all that sort of stuff. But we go into like the most excruciating amount of detail to make sure that everything like has its place and makes sense. And so when you hear it just flows as one piece, if that makes sense. And so that was kind of the main thing we really focused on, is that with whatever we're doing, it has just to like fit and work as one piece. And one of Jan's big things that he's kind of said from the beginning is like, you should be able to drop into a song at any point, like just pick a random song, pick a random minute and second, and something interesting should be happening, whether that's heavy or not. And so it's just kind of trying to apply that philosophy as well, so that whether it is just a sparse guitar for a minute or something like that, it's still interesting enough and it still carries the song and kind of reaches its right conclusion and all that sort of stuff.
We must be kind of looking forward to what is, will no doubt a long-term be a lot of deep analysis and breakdowns of each individual track, picking apart the detail, but often the early opinions, your first impressions and the first couple of listens and what it makes you feel is quite super important. And I think when you talk about the development of Conjurer and progression and what you've learned and brought with this album, I think one of the earliest things people might pick up on is how the balance of what is misery and beauty is near perfected on this album, something Conjurer are really, really good at, but also in this album, you've nailed to such a degree that it jumps out immediately, based, even if you've just listened to the singles and not the full album, as I currently have. Again, I have to ask, was that at the forefront of your mind when you're working on this album, that perfection of, right, we want to be miserable and heavy, but we also want to create this sense of beauty and peace and stuff that comes with that?
Not really. Again, it wasn't something that we didn't sit down and go, right, because it's kind of the band cliche, and like you just said, I feel like we have done it on this album, but it is like whenever a heavy band releases an album, it is always like, oh, the heavy bits are heavier and the clean bits are cleaner and all of that, and the choruses are bigger and this and that and everything. Yeah, it is this and that and this and that. So it wasn't something that we particularly picked up on, but I think it is something that has come out in incorporating those influences. So there was definitely a little bit of it on Maya, but Dan, for example, is really into folk music.
Okay.
And so he wanted to bring in a lot of those more folk elements, and that is especially with a song like Cracks in the Pyre, which I think is one of like the cleaner and more, I don't know if I can say it, but beautiful songs. A lot of that comes from like Dan's folk element, where the music is typically a lot more pretty in nature and all that sort of stuff. And it's then goes back to what I was saying before, but it's like, okay, well, how do we take this, but then put it through the filter of Conjurer to make, and like have it make sense in that heavy context? Because you're right, at the end of the day, we are a heavy band, and that's kind of like the main thing that we do, is like we're a metal band, right? But just because that's the case doesn't mean we can't have these nice, clean, pretty passages and all that. And that's part of the fun, to be honest, is having that dynamic of being able to do all of these things and do them well, not just, oh yeah, they're a really heavy band, but then they always go to these weird clean bits and it takes me out of it or something like that. So the point is, it all has its place and it all fits and it all makes sense and paints that wider picture, rather than just being like, oh yeah, they're a heavy band with a few clean bits here and there.
Well, you are becoming quite an impossible band to categorize, and we love, metal fans, metal press, whatever, love to categorize bands, put you in that slot. That's where you belong. Personally, I love it when you start to confuse matters. It's fun trying to describe Conjurer to someone who's never heard you before.
I'm glad you have fun. It's the bane of my life.
Oh,
people are like, oh, tell me, what is it? What sort of music do you play? I don't know. We just go with, if I'm talking to people who aren't into metal and that sort of thing, I'd just go, oh yeah, it's like screamy and shouty, horrible music. But then I think even on like all our socials, I think we've kind of given up. I think we just call ourselves UK riff music.
Yeah.
And hey, that works.
Just keep it as simple as that. You're a heavy metal band. It's that. Yes,
that's pretty much it, right? Yeah, it's like we're a metal band. Like, sure, we don't sound like Judas Priest in the same way if we were to be like a heavy metal band, but like there's no point calling us a death metal band, a black metal band, or this or that, because we absolutely have elements of that. And part of the good thing when we were first playing shows is we were able to play on lots of different kind of bills and in lots of different scenes, because we had those elements. So we could play a Stoner Doom show and then we could go play a hardcore show, and that was really cool. But yeah, you're right, when it comes to then putting a label on that, it's just it's a little tricky.
Well, I get the sense that you've got kind of pride in that, because ultimately the many, many layers, and we're talking about pathos here as well, because this is where the kind of keep them guessing aspect really starts to come to life. You take a lot of pride in the fact that you can stop people in their tracks who are expecting one thing and getting another.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's just what we're interested in, and like that kind of it definitely starts with the music, but it kind of then extends out everywhere. So things like, I don't know, we always kind of say like, I don't want to go to a death metal show where it's 4 death metal bands that sound the same, and then between each band and the house music, they're just playing more death metal. Like it's not interesting. Like for like, there's only so much you can take. Like it sounds cheesy, but the whole like variety is the spice of life, that sort of thing. It's like, it's more interesting when you have those more elements in there. Like obviously we want it to make sense, and we don't just want it to be crazy. They do this and that and this and that, but it's all like chop and change. You say the point is that it transitions and flows well. But yeah, we are proud of the fact that like we incorporate lots of different things, because like that's just who we are as people. We listen to lots of different music, and when we like it's dumb, but when we do our own headline shows and stuff where we're in control of the house music, we've got a Spotify playlist, which is kind of like just a dumping ground of like anything you like, put it in there. So our like pre-show playlist will go from like Nails to Katy Perry and then out to ABBA and something like, but that's fun to us and that's what we enjoy. So we just try and employ that to every aspect of what we do as a band. Say sometimes it has to be a little more serious, like in the music. I don't think we'll be having disco breaks at any point, but
Never say never. There's a long way to go.
True, yeah. We'll see how we've not written anything for album 3 yet. So maybe if I start thinking about it now, I can find the way to fit the disco break in. But no, other than that, it's because it's what we enjoy and it's because who we are as people. Like we don't set out to be the most diverse band in the world or anything like that. But we also definitely don't want to be a one-track band where you know exactly what you're going to get if you put a Conjurer like song or album on. Like it's good that people have an idea and it's good that we have a sound and people go, yep, that sounds like Conjurer. But within that sounds like Conjurer, like say, it's not a genre label, it's just who we are as a band. And that sounds like Conjurer could mean 10 different things.
Agreed. And I love the diversity that you're able to at least been able to appear on so many bills. You know, go back to 2021, the brief shows you were able to do something like the Download Pilot, you know, on that, you know, and that's so important.
Yeah, that was incredible. That was, yeah, I think we were the little bit of a sore thumb there, but again, like we're happy to be that sore thumb, and it's one of those things where we were going to do that regardless, because I don't know how people count it, but I definitely count it. That is ticked off the bucket list. I played main stage downloads, so no one's taking that away from me. But yeah, what it's like I say, that's what we want to do. We want to play on interesting bills. That's why we like festivals like Arctangent and that sort of thing, where it is like, yes, it's stylized, and yes, it's not going to have, I don't know, like more hip hop artists or anything like that on there, but there'll definitely be a bleed in from that sort of area, and say it is a diverse bill.
You don't think as well, like you'd ever turn anything down? For example, let's say somebody like Glastonbury came calling.
No, I don't see why not. It'd be one of those things. I was gonna say if we were randomly thrown in the middle of a pop stage, but even then, I feel like we'd do it just for the laugh at that point. Like realistically, yeah, we're happy to be at a point now where we can start being a little bit more selective with the shows we do. We're not in that stage where we have to just say yes to everything, but that doesn't mean we deliberately are then cynical and say no to a lot of stuff. Like most of the offers we get, as long as they're like reasonable for us in terms of like travel and that sort of thing, we'll do. Like we were going to be playing, I think it's Roskilde, it's a festival in the Netherlands, where I think the headliner for our day was like Taylor Swift, and it was kind of like a more Glastonbury setup. So yeah, we're completely open to do that sort of thing. Glastonbury, Reading and Leeds, all of it.
You don't want to put yourselves in a box. We shouldn't be putting you in a box. Let you be free. Do your thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's one of those things where like we've not run into anything where that's ever been a problem. And like some of the best gigs we've had have been gigs where say we might have stuck out a little bit, but it was fun, and we had a good time doing it.
Excellent. Well, as of the time of recording, we've had 3 singles from the album: It Dwells, Rot, and Cracks in the Pyre. Each uniquely different, each utterly spellbinding, and each a thrilling showcase of the Conjurer brilliance fans know and love. Not just my words, but the words of the fan base, because you only got to do a little bit of digging in the notoriously bad YouTube comments, for example, to see that it's predominantly positive. That universal reaction to the singles, has it helped put your mind at ease in regards to how Pathos is likely to be received? Because that's 3 singles and they're beloved.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like we were saying before, right at the start, where when you are going through the motions of like an album release, putting out the singles and getting that first snapshot is always kind of like exciting, kind of whichever way it went. Even if people had turned around and said they hated it, it would have at least been interesting. But no, it's definitely reassuring to see that people like it, and like to the point where I've seen a few different people say that like Cracks in the Pyre, for example, is like their favorite Conjurer song ever. So it's not even just they like the new stuff, but they like it that much that they think it's the best we've done. Like that is really like fulfilling and all that sort of stuff, especially because even though I was saying earlier that like as a band we don't put pressure on ourselves, this for me I felt a little bit of pressure just because this is my first proper Conjurer album. Like I joined the band, they called me to tell me I was in, essentially didn't even ask, just told me I was in the band, just as I think it was their last day in the studio when they recorded Maya. So like I've been in all the promo, I've done all the touring and all that sort of stuff, but it's never quite been my thing. Whereas now these are like my songs that I've contributed towards and stuff like that. So even though the band wasn't nervous and didn't feel the pressure, there was that little thing for me where I was like, oh God, I hope people don't love Maya and then hate the album that I'm on and that sort of thing. But no, even after we'd finished writing it and when I heard the full mix and mastered things, those doubts kind of went away because I knew that I loved it and I was proud of it. But it is also nice to then, put those singles out and, like you say, have them get a positive reaction. It's always a little bit reassuring, and it kind of means you can breathe that sigh of relief that, okay, well, at least people don't hate it.
It is. I don't want to sort of sound like I'm blowing smoke up your arse and when I start praising the album heavily, particularly when reviews are due out and stuff like that. So I'm not going to do that too much, but I just think it's an absolute not shock, but great time and realization with this, particularly if perhaps you're someone who maybe's been on a fence and been like, well, I like Maya, but I don't quite understand why they're being banded as this. I feel like Pathos is the answer to a lot of potential.
Okay, cool, yeah. It's an interesting as well, just because we feel like, I mean, I don't know, but from what people have said and like people like yourself who have heard it, we know that it's not as an immediate album as Maya as well. Like there is a lot there, and it might be an album that might take a couple of listens just to kind of get everything, or at least the majority out of it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, obviously the singles are a snapshot and give you an idea, but to see what people's reaction is when they can listen to the whole thing as a full album and after they've had a few listens and kind of, had the full experience. That's kind of what we're looking forward to.
Absolutely, because as well, of course, 3 singles is just 3 singles at this point. There's still plenty more on the album. From the tracks that haven't been released already, which one are you most looking forward to seeing the reaction to, and why?
I would say All You Will Remember. I think a lot of it is just because it's my favorite, I think. I mean, that flip-flops whenever I kind of listen to the album. I end up picking a different favorite, but I think I've basically landed on that one now. But even if that song isn't my full favorite, the kind of, like I was talking about that spoken word bit earlier, but from that to the end is like definitely my favorite moment on the album and possibly favorite thing we've ever done. So I think that's the one that I'm excited for people to hear the most, just because I love it. I love all the songs, so there's definitely different bits where I'm like, I hope people like this bit, like this bit's really cool, I hope people like that. I'm like, I'll be interested to see what people think about this. But in terms of a full song, I think that's the one that I'm most interested to kind of see what people think.
Yeah, I'm smiling because that was up until yesterday or the day before pretty much what I would agree with you on. But then the last day or two, I've pretty much been obsessed with Those Years Condemned. That's kind of been stuck in the replay.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Nice. Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's interesting as well because everyone seems to, for the most part, have a different one. Like a few of the different interviews I've done, people have been saying like, oh, I love In Your Wake and all that sort of stuff, which I'm glad people do. That one wasn't a song that I thought would be people's favorites. And so it's interesting that no one seems to really have picked the same one yet, which hopefully is a good thing that all the songs are good. But it is interesting to see which ones people pick out and like for which different reasons. Because Those Years Condemned initially, until we had It Dwells fully written, was kind of the front runner to open the album and be the first single. And I was kind of the last person to come around to the current way of thinking. Like I was fighting It Dwells, not for any particular reason, just because I believed in Those Years Condemned.
Yeah.
And so, it's interesting to see that you've picked up on that one, because in a different world, that would have been your first impression of the album.
Come back to me next week. It'll be a different song. It really is.
I'll check in.
October into the beginning of November, a massive European tour that ends in the UK. And it basically looks like you're picking up where you left off in 2019, but bigger, bolder, and with even more new music to offer to the masses, which does suggest to me that this feels like this period, so to the album release and then following up to that tour and anything else you've got going on this year. Very exciting period. Maybe the most exciting period Conjurer has been part of so far, do you think?
I think so, yeah, potentially, like you say, especially just because there is all that build up and tension from it being so long since Maya, paired with then like, it's not just us, everybody is eager to get back out there now that things are 80-90% reopened from the pandemic and like things are happening again. Like it's all kind of boiled up to this one point. But no, you're right. I think this is definitely our time and our opportunity to kind of hopefully hit the ground running and get out there and do a headline tour, kind of plant our flag in again, and so kind of like say, oh well, we're back, and then go from there. The plan is definitely after the headline tour 2023 onwards is to just tour and tour and tour. We want to get back out to like America and Canada. We want to hit places that we've not been before. Like there's nothing penciled in, but like the plan is there to try and do like Australia and Japan and all of that. So yeah, you're right. It's all coming to a head, and it's definitely hopefully anyway going to be a good time to be in Conjurer and stuff like that. But we'll see. It's one of the things where I could say that and then we could all get shut down again tomorrow, and it was all kind of like pointless making the plans anyway. But yeah, it's half kind of what we were saying before, just take each day as it comes, and it's half okay, we're building up to something here, like we're ready to go, essentially, like we're just excited to go.
It's that, isn't it? It's still the unknown that will still exist, at least for, I think, a good couple of years, particularly in the industry more than anything else, not necessarily the politics of the world. But regardless of that, I think most people, myself and yourselves as well, just hope for all the success in the entire world, that you can get to do all these tours. And the album is not just received, but sells, and it's just blows up. I don't know. I'm trying to be super excitable about it.
It's one of those, it's just, we never know. Like, we didn't expect Maya to go as crazy as it did, and obviously we're very thankful for that. So we obviously hope that this one goes well and like things keep going on an upward trajectory. But it all kind of comes back to what we were saying before. Like, we write the music and we write songs and we do the band for the four of us. And so we know we're happy with it, we know we love it, we're proud of it, and we're obviously putting it out as something that we are super proud of and we want to share with people. We hope everybody loves it, and we hope that we can go and tour everywhere and say have success with it. But if for whatever reason it flops and no one else likes it, then that's okay too. We'll see.
Considering the last question I have for you, considering the last couple of years and a really busy period, and then obviously to stop and then to work on Pathos, have you, as an individual and as a group, had a moment to kind of stop and reflect on your success to this point?
A little bit, yeah. It's one of those things where, kind of like when we were saying before about like people praising us and saying things like future of British metal, and like how we have to take that in and internalize it and then just kind of move on to the next thing. These 2 years, we didn't know if there was going to be a next thing, right? So we could only really sit back and reflect and take stock and see where we've come. And it's kind of doing interviews like this and like building up to a new album where those things really hit home, and like the way that then people then talk about our band. Because like I was saying, like between us, when we talk to each other, we're just still the same four idiots. Like I'm so proud of like my mates and this band and all of that, but I don't look at Dan and Brady and go, oh, look how far you've come. Like, because we have, but we've done it together, and like we've been there every step of the way. So any growth that there's been, like we probably don't notice compared to everyone else. So it's only when people turn it around and go, yeah, look at you now, and like, oh, we get this off from people, go, yeah, you guys are right there up there in the British heavy metal scene, that we only kind of go, oh god, I guess maybe we are, I don't know. So that the opportunity is probably not the right word, but the time where we weren't able to go out and tour and release albums and kind of do all of that, was an opportunity to kind of sit back, take stock, and be like, wow, okay, we have done a lot, and we have been busy, and we have, like I said before, we've been able to tick off more stuff just from this one album than we'd ever thought we'd be able to as a band. So being able to look back at those memories and all that is it's great, it's amazing. But it's also then what's kind of firing us up to go out and do it again. And like, okay, great, we've toured America, but now we want to tour America again, but better. And like, we've played Download a couple of times, but we want to do it again and bigger and a better stage and all that sort of stuff. So absolutely, we definitely took the moment to sit back and reflect, but we don't want to get too comfortable, if that makes sense. Like, we don't want to rest on our laurels or anything like that.
Hopefully in 10 years time I get to ask this question again, and about a rock star moment, and you've really got a lot more to pile onto that. Then
I'll have the sunglasses then and the platinum records behind me and all that sort of stuff. Got it.
Has been, on a personal level, as a person that's been following you along since Maya as well, Black Heart back in 2018 was the first time I saw you play live. So the fact that I'm looking at the Dome in London later on at the end of the year as well, you know, on a personal level, a fan base thing more than anything else, it's an incredible amount of pride. I almost feel like you're out of reach for a website like us. That's a small website, and it's like, oh, Conjurer big now. They go do their thing, and I'm proud of that.
Definitely not, dude. No, we enjoy it. We enjoy kind of like, because it is that thing, like you can say Black Heart 2018 and we know exactly what that means. There was only like 50 people in that room, something like that. I don't know what cap the Black Heart actually is, 50 to 100 people. But yeah, it doesn't matter about size or anything like that. As I say, you're someone that's been there from the start, and we appreciate it. Like we very much appreciate everyone making the effort and sticking with us. And like part of the growth and stuff is, yes, it might be down to the music and this or that, but it is kind of people like yourself talking about us and writing nice reviews and all of this sort of stuff. So no, thank you more than anything.
Well, I can't wait to see people's reaction to Pathos. It's the 1st of July, nuclear blast. You don't have long to wait, people, and it's going to be worth it. Conor, thank you again so much for taking the time to do this.
No, thank you, mate. It's been nice. I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?